Good afternoon. I have a confession to make. I find all of this a little intimidating. I'm afraid I'll use the wrong words or acronyms, or that I need to have a lot of complicated graphs and charts to impress you. I'm nervous because I don't come from the world of games, and you do. And that means there's a good chance some of you are going to leave this conference and go out and shape the world I live in. So I'm not just here to sell you on my app, hashtag self-care, or to tell you the story of the company I work for, TRU LUV, though I will. I'm here to remind you of the power you have, and to ask that when you begin to shape the world, you keep that power in mind from the very start. On the plus side, I don't need to tell you the things I need to tell most other people when I explain TRU LUV to them. That games are a $100 billion industry, that Pokemon Go has 146 million active players around the globe, maybe more by now. You know that. That's why you're here. But I would like to share some of the numbers that are keeping me up at night. For example, the average person is on their phone 3 hours and 15 minutes a day, or about a month and a half every year. Over the past decade, the number of teens with mental health disorders has more than doubled. The wellness market is worth over $4.5 trillion and only set to increase. And finally, in late 2019, a mobile app called hashtag self-care surpassed $2 million, all without any kind of formal marketing campaign, based on an idea from someone with no industry experience and using an untested design theory. So, how did that happen? Well, I met Brie Code about 5 years ago when I was an editor at a luxury car magazine. I was looking for someone to profile in the world of tech. At that time, Brie was working at Ubisoft on the Assassin's Creed franchise, games you probably know and have probably played. I didn't play them, but I did know them, and even I knew they were a big deal. That Brie was a big deal. There was just one problem. Brie was about to quit her job. She told me she was going to pack up her things and travel the world, start her own studio, creating games with people whose voices were missing from the mainstream. As it turns out, I was one of those people. Because while she was trying to figure out what was missing from games, I was trying to figure out how to live with my mobile phone every day. This thing in my pocket that I couldn't stop checking, even though I felt terrible every time I did. Somehow, the solution to both our problems was the same: a new kind of experience for your mobile phone. Because hashtag self-care isn't quite a game or a personal assistant. It's something completely new. An AI companion that's a bit like a friend inside your phone. The concept appears simple. You open up the app to find yourself in bed. As you interact with objects around the room, petting your cat, sorting your laundry, playing with bubbles, the sun rises and hopefully so do your spirits. You get positive messages, you can't fail, and you certainly can't die. You might only use it for 3 or 5 minutes before you put your phone away, and that actually means it's working just as intended. Of course, when we explain the concept to people who are used to video games, they all want to know the same thing. It might be exactly what you're asking yourself right now. How do I get out of bed? Or how do I escape the room? Which makes total sense if you're used to traditional game design. But I wasn't, so you don't. Your friend doesn't get out of bed or escape the room. Because for someone who wishes they could stay in bed all day, the room is the escape. The secret to self-care's design and success, including being named an Apple App of the Year, really lies in a theory Bree wanted to test out. It's a radical theory. It is, as they say in Silicon Valley, disruptive. It just happens to look very soft and soothing and pastel pink and blue. Most games, maybe all games, are based on the reigning theory about how humans react to stress, first introduced in 1915: fight or flight. The idea is that in the face of danger, your body prepares to fight the monster or to run away. Your heart races, your breathing quickens, your sympathetic nervous system triggers an adrenaline release, which is followed by dopamine. The threat can be real or imagined. It can be a bear attack, or it can be a work email. So it's not difficult to see how this can be used across game design, app design, and social media. Bright lights, fast-paced music, pop-ups. Self-care is built around a different, understudied stress response to danger, one that was only refined by researchers in the year 2000. Tend and befriend. Like fight or flight, it's a physiological response to a threat. But instead of staying to fight or getting ready to run, it makes you want to protect loved ones and seek out allies for mutual defense, building communities and cooperating with neighbors, basically. And rather than being tied to adrenaline, there's evidence this is fueled by oxytocin, sometimes known as the love hormone, because people also release it when they're cuddling with a loved one or holding a baby. In practice, this might look like a child being bullied at school who asks their friends to walk them home, or a stressed new parent joining a family playgroup, or a computer game that has no lives, no timer, and encourages exploring. In the world of true love, someone feeling threatened or anxious might open self-care to write about it in their journal, or to pet their cat until it purrs, to take care of their virtual friend until they feel their friend caring for them right back. And here's where I admit that as much as I wanted a space to escape inside my phone, I was totally skeptical about how self-care might actually work in practice. I have a background in professional marketing, so that side of me had to ask, really? No levels, no tough challenges to beat, no pop-ups asking you to rate and review. These seem like pretty basic, even neutral design elements. Would it really stress people out for us to use them too? As proof, I mentioned a word game I used to help me relax before bed and on the bus ride to work, one that seemed pretty effective, except it absolutely wasn't. Because when I really paid attention to this totally innocent app with simple puzzles and pictures of waterfalls, it became clear it was built on a traditional fight or flight design curve, one that goes from easy to hard. If I couldn't get a word on the last level, I would be in a bad mood all day. If someone interrupted me while I was playing on my lunch break, I completely snapped at them, even when it was my boss. I wasn't being chased by monsters or shooting enemies, but I was stressed out by design. And the whole time, I thought I was relaxing. So, why don't we know more about tend and befriend theory? Well, for one, because it's largely associated with women, but not all the time, not exclusively, and not in every situation. And we know scientific studies tend to study one type of person, men. Actually, one type of man, reference man, a Caucasian male, aged 25 to 30, who weighs 70 kilograms. It's not that individual scientists are consciously setting out to ignore over 4 billion people. They're doing things how they've always been done. For efficiency, to save money, avoid lawsuits even. They also use male rats. Then when they get results, they pretend that women and female rats are just slightly smaller males, despite all evidence to the contrary. Now, there are extreme consequences to reference man that we're only beginning to understand and to confront right now. For example, designing cars and crash test dummies around men's bodies mean women are 50% more likely to get hurt in collisions. Medical studies on heart disease that only use men as test subjects mean heart attacks are misdiagnosed in women half the time. There are also less deadly effects that still have wide-ranging social consequences and may impact the work you're doing right now. Virtual reality headsets that make some people feel nauseous, facial recognition software calibrated to pale skin, car navigation apps that have trouble recognizing certain voices. And none of these have to be intentional, let alone malicious, for them to be real problems. They just mean some voices are being left out of the discussion. Here's the good news. There are huge opportunities for these missing voices, and they're only going to grow because companies are waking up to the idea that diversity isn't just good for press relations. It is essential to innovation, to ethics, and to success. And it has to be there from day one, not just in a focus group right before you ship. To prevent PR disasters, to spot overlooked markets, and yes, to save lives. Companies also recognize that diversity comes in many forms, inherent and acquired, like gender, race, who you live with, even the cities you've lived in before. In my case, I was lucky enough to have my lack of experience in the games industry recognized as a potential source of strength. I don't instinctively know where to click to collapse a window or what the letters on a color slider mean. And in that way, I'm not so different from some of the markets we're targeting with hashtag self-care, who might be resistant to traditional games and game design. The teenager who just got her first phone, the busy professional who doesn't want to watch a lot of long tutorials before they can actually use an app. Maybe you're taking care of an aging parent who can see firsthand the trouble they have using a traditional touchscreen. Maybe you've got a newborn baby and suddenly have a great idea for a parenting app that you never would have considered before. Being a caretaker, speaking multiple languages, living with a disability, anything that makes you unique can be a superpower in a world that's been tailored to one kind of customer for far too long. Right now, there are potential audiences that completely avoid games because they assume they all look and feel the same. Maybe you can make the games you wish existed that can also transform their lives. There are game studios that have been doing things the same way for decades, trying to repeat a previous success. Maybe you can open up new worlds and new markets to them. There are companies in tech and wellness desperate to connect with clients around the globe in creative new ways. Maybe you can show them what games can really mean and do for people. You have more power than you think to change the world, whether you're starting with a small idea or taking a huge risk. I'm just asking that you consider what kind of world you want to live in before you start to build it. Thank you.